Hey guys, as always, welcome back to Local Living with Reid Casey Real Estate. We are so excited to bring you another episode, and Catherine is actually going to ping me, berate me, whatever you call it, with questions.
Yes, it's going to be rapid fire questions.
Rapid fire. On what? What are we talking about?
We're talking about selling your home.
So she went through these questions just real quick with me, like 2 seconds ago, and said, here's what I'm going to ask you. So I'm really unprepared for this, but we're going to talk about it.
All right, so Reid.
Yes.
When it comes to selling a home, where should homeowners start, and what's the first thing they need to do?
Where should they start, and what's the first thing they need to do? Okay, so I'm going to speak in most successful terms. Okay, so most successful cases that we've seen, it really starts with a consultation. So a phone call, an appointment set, making sure whoever's on the other end, the agent, at least on our end, we want to make sure we understand why they're moving, why they're thinking about this, a little bit of what their goals are before we get there. So we kind of have an understanding of what's going on, who's involved, right? Maybe time frame. And a simple consultation in home. I mean, I don't know of a successful consultation that I've had that hasn't happened at the dining room table. But a consultation where we can go see their house, see how much work needs to be done, maybe give them an update on what the market's doing, how much they can expect to get for their market, a return on investment if there's things to do, maybe a return on certain improvements that they can make. Every seller seems to have a threshold of the amount of work or money that they're willing to do, and we are very sensitive to that. We've got processes to help people go through that. I think that's where they start, is don't clean up the dirty laundry on the floor. You don't need to go make huge improvements, even though some of our sellers are super particular about what their house looks like before we even get to their house for a first and initial consultation. But at that consultation, don't stress out about the condition of the house. We are there to help them determine a timeline, make sure that we can meet their goals, pricing, market update, kind of all the things that they need to know before really getting, because selling a house, Catherine, is not easy. So that initial consultation really kind of helps set the course for everything else.
So how important is decluttering and staging to attract buyers?
I would say it's probably the most important thing.
I agree.
When a buyer shows up to a house, it's on the market, it's listed, hopefully the lights are on and curb appeal looks fantastic, as good as it can look. And I know when I'm walking with buyers, do you go through the side door or the front door?
I like to go through the front door.
Okay, we always go through the front.
Right.
Most of the time. Buyers walking up the path, and they're like checking out the neighborhood behind them, and we open up that front door and they're getting excited, and we walk in and it either stinks, it's messy, there's distracting things around, it feels like home hasn't been taken care of. It's like all of that anticipation, it's like air is just sucked out of the room. And so I'd say decluttering, keeping it clean, making the house at least appear like the seller has loved it, maintained it, they've enjoyed living there. It is the number one thing that's going to hold people up. Maybe not the number one, I mean pricing and location, those things kind of make a factor. But as far as like presentation, it's top.
Yeah, your first impression is most important.
Yeah.
Agreed. Okay, so let's talk pricing. How do you determine the right price for a home?
This question can be answered a couple different ways, but I'll tell you how I start.
Okay.
Because some properties are super unique. We need different people to help us, like put a third set or second set of eyes on it. And we do that all the time. I'd say for most properties, we want to know what's sold in the neighborhood. So we're looking at comps, recent, if it's a neighborhood and it has similar houses, size-wise, age-wise, we're going to just do a comp check. We know our community so well around here, that's a fairly easy thing for us to do. We already know what homes are selling for, generally speaking. We're going to kind of compare, pluses and minuses between those homes. But the number one thing I look at, Catherine, is how many homes are available that would compete with this house. So we're narrowing it down to school districts, to zip codes, to really around here, school districts, because a lot of people buy based on school districts. And that can narrow markets down. If there are 3 other houses on the market that were sort of similar to this, like if I was out showing buyers around and I was showing them 3 or 4 houses, this one was one of them, what would the other 2 or 3 houses be? And I want to make sure that we're positioned marketing-wise, condition-wise, price-wise, better than those houses. So we're going to look at active inventory. We're going to look at pending homes, the number of homes that are under contract compared to the ones that are on the market. We're going to look at why those are under contract. We're going to reach out to those agents and see if they had multiple offers or what was so attractive about those to get a sense of what the market's done over the last 30 to 60 days. And then we're obviously going to look at sold comps even outside the neighborhood. We really want to make sure a couple things. We want to make sure A, our comps are on point, but B, once we get under contract, that buyer's going to have a mortgage, that mortgage is going to require an appraisal. We want to make sure that we can bring that appraiser some good information because, the buyer has to make a judgment on what they want to pay for it. The appraiser has to make a judgment on what they want to assess it for the bank. We want to win all of those.
So what is the risk of overpricing and how does it affect the sale?
Catherine, I think the answer is there's no real great strategy in overpricing a house, okay? I'm going to say that first. I mean, that's pretty obvious, all right? You set a price out of the gate where even people scrolling online can't even believe that house is priced. They won't even come see you. So like you already you set the wrong expectation up front, and you've eliminated your buyer pool. They haven't even walked through the door yet. So overpricing is not great. Underpricing can be good in some markets where there's more buyers than sellers and you can drive a lot of demand. So slightly coming under the market where you can charge up maybe a multiple offer situation, which we got so used to post-COVID. That can be a good strategy. Giving our sellers, is what we like to do, this is kind of a worst case where we see it. This is kind of where we really see the market, what it would pay for, if we stuck a sign out in the yard today. Here's kind of a best case. Now, best case, it's kind of your call where we want to start seller. We could start there and then see what happens, or we can sort of start at one of these two lower ends and see if we can get you best case. Because best case in a real estate transaction doesn't always reflect in the pricing. It can reflect in different terms. Maybe we need more time after closing to stay in the house. Maybe we're looking for a cash deal instead of a finance deal. There's a lot of things, a lot of variables that could be attractive in an offer, but that's my opinion on price.
So how do you market homes to get the best exposure?
That's a great question too. Over the years that's changed. I mean, I was selling homes right when really email came. We started using email. We were faxing contracts over. I mean, now we have this beautiful thing called the MLS and internet and our exposure, and then our photography gets better, and videography gets better, and it sort of seems like technology's changed that a lot. The one thing that really hasn't changed is our relationships with our broker community, making sure that we reach out to the most qualified brokers, because the most qualified cooperating brokers in our community have the what?
The best buyers.
The best buyers, the most qualified and best buyers. They're the easiest to work with. They know what they're doing. They know values. We can talk the lingo together. So that's really a big part of our strategy, is connections between our brokers. And we're on text strings all the time with what's coming and who we've got and buyers coming and listings coming. We're on Facebook groups with them. So I think there's a lot of that goes on that's underappreciated by maybe, or not even known about by many buyers and sellers. Obviously, we want to nail our online marketing, right? And that starts with making sure that we're priced well, making sure that our photos look good, making sure that we're presenting the home in the best way possible. That's fairly obvious. And then, of course, the sky's the limit from there. Presentation goes a long way.
I agree.
So staging, making sure that when a buyer gets there, when they show up, that they're going to have the same or a better experience in the home than they did before they got there. It makes a huge impact. Now, in some cases, it's important for us to show the home so we can expose or point out the great things about the community, because the reality is many agents that represent buyers coming through homes, they may not know the area or the neighborhood or the amenities or the special things about that particular house than we do. And so in many cases, it is very important for an agent who has the enthusiasm, that just can throw off awesome vibes to that buyer, can tell them about the neighborhood itself, or maybe amenities in the area, school districts, things like that. That is a really kind of key.
Yeah, I agree. Okay, so let's talk about open houses. Do you feel like they're still effective, or do you feel like everything has transitioned to online marketing?
Well, our online marketing pushes people to our open houses.
Agree.
Open houses can become ineffective, I think. There's a window where open houses are very effective. Typically, that is when the initial public offering of the listing goes on. It's like early in the listing, when the most excitement about the listing happens, when buyers feel the most urgency to maybe put in an offer because the house hasn't set on the market for a long time. There are other opportunities to open houses within a listing that's set on the market for a while, like if you've been on the market 30 days or 60 days and you incur a price reduction or you make the home a little bit more attractive in that way, then doing an open house is great. What we've noticed, Catherine, is recently the majority of our traffic is coming through open houses early on in the listing. Doesn't mean that those buyers are unrepresented. They still have agents, but they may be a little early in the process, or they may just find an opportunity that, well, there's an open house. They're not going to bother their agent. They're still going to go by and see it. It also allows us as the seller's representative to really showcase that house in the way that we feel like is best. So I'm a fan. Not for every listing is sort of individual, but I'm a fan of open houses. Now, it's up to the seller. Obviously, we don't make our sellers host open houses, but we, generally speaking, in the realm of marketing, they're good.
Okay, so let's talk about when an offer comes in. Mm-hmm. How do we help those homeowners navigate that negotiation process?
That starts in the initial conversation that we have with them. Typically, it's sort of like, okay, guys, we haven't even listed the home yet. We're in the initial seller consultation. Here's what the market's doing. Here's sort of what we expect. Now, we can get a flood of buyers, or we could only have one. And sort of, if we get a flood of buyers and we get multiple offers, here's sort of the strategy that we use. If we only have like one buyer and nobody else is bidding on this thing, guys, like here's gonna be the strategy. So really helping the seller understand what may happen is gonna help them make a quick decision when an offer comes in. What do you think the number one thing is that kills deals? Number one thing that
Greed.
maybe. It's time. So it's the time that it takes to negotiate a deal. Because the wind can get sucked out of a real estate negotiation like nobody's business. And if a seller, if we get an offer that is not exactly what the seller wants and the seller's unwilling to respond to it and just will not respond with terms that they find agreeable, likely another house comes on the market, that buyer goes away, and it goes away. Same with buyers if they don't engage with sellers. So that time, if we can close the gap on time, and that's typically where we don't have to make last minute decisions, where we can sort of set expectations for sellers of what they may see. Also, I think knowing what's important for the buyer.
Sure.
So if I'm a seller and I receive a contract and maybe the price is a little lower than what I really wanted to accept or agree to, but I know that buyer needs to close pretty quick, maybe I can fill the gap by asking for a little bit more money, but being willing to move out of the house quickly.
Yeah. Okay, so final question. Do you have any advice for our sellers on how to handle counteroffers as well as multiple bids?
Okay, yes. Those are two different questions. There's two different things. Just counteroffer, right? If you're a seller, you receive an offer, maybe a little lower than you anticipated, may not have all the terms that you would agree to. The important thing here is just a counteroffer. I had a house this year, Catherine. We were priced at $3.75 million, I believe. And we got an offer for, I think it was like $3 million, right? This is $750,000 discrepancy. It's a pretty big discrepancy. That we were new to the market. It was like, wow, like we've had some showings on this and this is what we get. And I encouraged my seller to counter, and they said, well, we really don't want to come much off of our price, which is great, but let's just get something in front of them, give the buyer an opportunity to say yes. They did, and the buyer accepted it. We closed.
Right.
So we had this huge gap. We didn't really know what was going on the buyer side, whether they were just kind of to fish for the best deal around, or whether they really liked the house. But the point is just to counter on the seller side with terms that are agreeable, that would make you smile at closing, give that buyer an opportunity to close. Regarding the multiple offer situation, there are several ways that this is handled, and we sort of use them all. It's important to know if you have a listing that may get multiple offers. And the way that we list homes, where we typically list midweek, but we don't start showings until maybe closer to the weekend, and we allow for a pent-up demand to sort of start scheduling showings, or an abundance of buyers to start showing up and knocking at the door wanting to get in the house. If we have that, it might be important to wait till Monday to see if we get multiple offers. If we start getting showings but no offers, and it seems like the buyers are kind of cool on the listing, and we just get one offer, and it may be good to go ahead and negotiate with that right away. But in the sense that we get like 5 offers, we have 5 offers that we're looking at, we're really breaking down all aspects of those offers to our sellers, and we're really putting them side by side, and we're saying, okay, is this one better than this one? Yep, this one goes to the top. Is this one better than this one? Yep, this one goes to the top. Who's more qualified? Have we talked to their lenders? Do we know what their current situation is? Do they really have a house that they want to get sold before they buy this one, or do they not? So getting to the truth of the buyer situation can be very helpful. So it's not maybe a clear answer for you, but I'd say the strategy is knowing if you have a listing that may receive multiple offers, and if it does, is really putting those offers side by side until we can make sure we have the most qualified, get the most earnest money, get us a closing date that works, maybe some time after closing for the seller to stay in the property after we close, so the money's in the bank, and then they can go find a house. And there's so many factors, but understanding, that's it.
Okay. Thank you all for joining us on today's episode. If you're thinking about selling your home, I hope this gave you some valuable insights. Don't forget to subscribe to Local Living with Reid Casey Real Estate on all our podcasting platforms, and hit the subscribe button on YouTube to catch the latest episode. And we'll see you next time.